introduce, but if you remember Wally, I don't know how he got that noise. I have no idea. But, so I'm just going to give you a little heads up on how this is going to run. What we're going to do is the program actually starts at 5 minutes after 12. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out. I'll just give a quick introduction to Mr. Ax. He's going to come out on stage. We'll just say hi and chit-chat for a second. He's going to play something. So after I do the introduction, we're going to save the applause for when he's on his way out on stage. All right? And then I'll do a little talking after he plays the first piece. We'll interview him. We'll speak for a little bit. He'll play another piece. We'll speak a little bit more. And then at the end, he'll play a piece of music to take us off for the afternoon. I've got a whole stack of questions people gave me before we started. We'll see how many we can actually get through. He's a very nice guy. I hope you enjoy this. If you haven't had the opportunity to hear him perform yet, you're really in for quite a treat. He's been out here practicing all morning. Sounds like $1 million. So I'm so excited you could all join us. Thank you very much. Again, we're going to start at exactly 5 minutes after the hour. So thank you very much for coming. Hope you have a great time.
Tonight we have the open rehearsal at 6:30. There'll be complimentary food from Calamari's. 6:30 to 7:30, sort of open in the lobby, meet and greet with Daniel. And then at 7:30, if anyone comes, you'll be able to see the first part of rehearsal tonight as well. So it's a really neat opportunity to see Emanuel Ax work with the Erie Phil. Should be a lot of fun. On your way out, there's a table you'll see, and there's a chance to win 3 different sets of tickets. We're giving away 2 pairs of tickets and 2 really fancy Erie Phil coffee cups for April 1st and April 8th concert, as well as 2 tickets for tomorrow night's concert. So if you don't have tickets yet, on the way out and the concert is sold out, but on the way out the door, if you fill out a card, we will do the drawing this afternoon and we'll call the lucky winner. So we have 2 tickets for tomorrow night, as well as for April 1, which is our Disney concert, and April 8, which is the Organ Symphony. So thank you very much. This should be a great Friday as part of our 4-day residency. So thank you very much.
Rock stars, sports legends, fighter pilots, what do they all have in common? Massive egos, right? You almost have to have a massive ego to perform at the level of those particular artists or engineers or pilots or rock stars. It's a prerequisite if you want to be one of today's finest virtuosi also, because these highly skilled musicians spend night after night traveling the world, playing into concert halls with audiences made up of the most discerning and educated listeners. There's a lot of pressure that goes into that, wouldn't you think? So, of course, to be perfect night after night, it's not for the faint of heart. So you can understand how, with such an immeasurable amount of self-confidence and skill and, yes, ego, would be necessary to be one of today's finest performers. Well, that is unless you're today's guest here on Live from Studio Q. Emanuel Ax is known to be one of the nicest, kindest, most gentle artists, egoless practically, in the entire music business. I read an article in preparing for today's broadcast that described him as notoriously nice, one of the kindest, funniest, and most genuinely caring people in the music business. I'm Brian Hanna. Welcome to Live from Studio Q, and today on Live from Studio Q, the Erie Philharmonic's guest soloist, one of the finest piano soloists in the world, Emanuel Ax. Welcome. Welcome. That's for you. We'll just talk for a second. How about the love? The quickest Live from Studio Q ever. Of course, joining us on stage also is Daniel Meyer. And Daniel, the music director of the Erie Phil, will be talking to us in a few minutes about the second half of this weekend's Erie Philharmonic concert, a performance of the Mahler 4. But first, welcome, Emanuel. Thank you very much for joining us here. We're going to let you play kind of to begin things off, and then we'll chit-chat a little bit about your life and your career. But what would you like to play for us first?
Well, since we're doing Beethoven this weekend, I guess I thought I do have one Beethoven piece that I sort of know, and so the first movement of the Pathétique Sonata.
Pathétique.
Okay.
Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, Emanuel Ax. Do you even want to talk to him now? Do you even want to talk to him? Thanks again for spending your afternoon with us here. It's been a busy week for you in Erie.
It's been lovely. Yeah.
You did a performance, a little talk at the Jefferson Society. You
Yes.
performed at an elementary school, and you're not done yet. You've got quite a bit left to go before tomorrow night.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of schools, both very enjoyable. Second, third graders, which was lots of fun in downtown, I guess.
Right.
And I don't know exactly where it is, obviously, but some middle school kids who are already in orchestra and band and so forth, and it was like playing in Germany. I've never heard such silence in my life. incredibly attentive.
A friend of mine posted something on social media the other day that they're the ones who donated one of the pianos you played on. And
Yeah.
she said in all of the years of her practicing, it never sounded quite that good.
Well, I don't know how to respond to that, really.
Well, I put out a call for questions. I didn't want to come up with my own for this because this is a pretty big event for us, so I put out a call for questions. I have a whole stack of questions. We'll get to the ones we can, but
Okay.
one question came up over and over and over.
All right.
And it's really pretty important, too, I think.
Okay.
What's Yo-Yo Ma really like?
Well, I don't know if you're aware of it, but he is Chinese. I don't know. So that's he's actually like he seems. He's extremely approachable, wonderful fellow. You know, we've been playing together for we added it up actually this summer. It's been 45 years now.
Well, you met at Juilliard, correct?
We met at Juilliard. He was studying with Leonard Rose, and I was the studio pianist for Leonard Rose. And Mr. Rose kept talking about, I have this amazing young student named Yo-Yo Ma. I didn't believe him, because in those days we didn't have that many Asian students at Juilliard, and no one was named Yo-Yo. It was, it was insane. So I thought he was always pulling my leg, But then there was a concert with the 15-year-old Yo-Yo Ma at the small hall at Carnegie, which is now called the Weil Recital Hall. And my wife, my now wife, my then girlfriend, we went to that concert together. It was just as astounding as it is now, actually.
Did you ever think that he would command the presence he does in the music world and that you would be joining him on that same stage?
He started as simply an incredibly great cellist. So I know that's still saying a lot. But he somehow, he has a mind that's so wide-ranging and so interested in making connections between things that I think it's led him to an incredible number of things. I'm only involved in a few of the really boring classical stuff that he does, but the Silk Road project has been an amazing thing. He's worked with Chris Thiel, who's now who's taken over the Prayer Home Companion, and has just made a record with him and Edgar Meyer of Bach pieces transcribed for mandolin, double bass, and cello, and I can't wait to hear it. I'm sure it's going to be incredible. So he's just he's an amazing figure. I think if we could clone Yo-Yo, Lang Lang, and Gustavo Dudamel, and have 10 of each, I think the music world would be a far different place.
Well, you didn't move to America until you were about 10 years old, correct?
Yeah, we actually came to Canada from Poland when I was 10 to Winnipeg, and then
music activity.
actually quite so.
Yep,
That's absolutely right. I mean, I don't know if you were being
No.
but that is actually true. It's always had a wonderful orchestra. It has a world famous ballet company.
Right.
And wonderful teachers. I had a couple of amazing teachers there, John Milnick and Jean Broadfoot, wonderful people who managed to make music serious and at the same time fun. Well, that's the most difficult thing in the world, to be a teacher who can do that, not only in music but in anything.
Well, when you came over, you didn't speak much English at all, did you?
No English, no.
None.
No.
So how did you assimilate so quickly?
Well, I think at that age, when at the age of 10, it's very easy.
Did you come over already as a piano player with some potential, or were you just a new kid moving to America and you wanted to take piano lessons?
Well, I started studying when I was 7 in Lvov and then in Warsaw, and I was just an average, nothing. I didn't know that I was going to try and be a pianist, so it was very open-ended. Yeah,
So
I
very
just
different from Yo-Yo Ma, who was a child prodigy.
yes. Oh, yes. Yo-Yo played. I believe Yo-Yo played at the White House for President Kennedy when he was 6.
Right.
Yeah, he was an extraordinary young. Yes, precocious, to say the least. Yeah.
So how did you get from Winnipeg to Juilliard?
My father was looking for work in his field, which was speech and voice therapy. At the time, that was a very new field. There really was no work to be found in Winnipeg. So we tried moving to New York, where there was more possibility. And he eventually found a job after a number of years of doing various things. And Juilliard was, I guess, it's a New York school, so it was the first place I thought of trying to go.
It was a good choice.
For me, it worked out wonderfully. Yeah. It's a wonderful place, especially now. It's become a very friendly and wonderful school, I think.
So when did you decide that music would be a career rather than just a hobby? Was it while you were at Juilliard or previous?
Yeah, I think maybe when I was 14 or so, 13, 14, around there, I was at Juilliard Prep, which is the Saturday morning program for kids who are just in normal school and doing music. So it was kind of I never had a day when I decided. It just kind of I couldn't do much else. And I just,
It was a good choice. Juilliard was good for you in a number of ways.
I guess
you met your wife there. You met
yes,
Yo-Yo Ma.
I was very lucky to be there at a good time and to find wonderful friends. I think a lot of school, I'm sure people will agree with me that a lot of your school experience depends on who you make friends with.
Well,
And I was very, very fortunate in that. A number of pianists that are friends to this day. Garrick
And your wife,
Olson,
who's also a
my
pianist.
wife, who still lets me back in the house. So that's worked out very well. Yeah, it's.
well, your wife is a fine concert pianist.
Yeah.
She specializes in chamber music, from what I understand.
Well, we did quite a bit of work together, and now she's kind of stopped. We have twin grandchildren, 2 years and 3 months, and she's quite passionate about tennis, and she's learning bridge, and I think she's tired of practicing. So,
Well, speaking of practicing, you live in New York still, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How do you get a piano up into your apartment? And then how do you practice
Oh,
without
there's
scaring all the neighbors?
well, there's an elevator where a piano fits, and in fact, it can be a major problem to have an apartment in New York and to practice. We've been in this building. We've been incredibly lucky with our neighbors, because not only does one of them really, they all seem to love music, but one of them loves really thorny new music. So I was practicing for a while the Copland piano variations, which is a deliberately ugly piece, boing, 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 and I would meet them in the elevator and say, we were fine with the Schubert, but when are you going to practice that fabulous piece again, the Copland? So we've been lucky with neighbors as well. Yeah.
Now, when you and your wife were both performing a lot together, was there any conflict in practice time? Or
No,
did
we actually have an apartment where at one end there's one piano, at the other end there's another piano. So no problem.
One's going to become the room for the grandchildren at this point, I would
Exactly.
So that
That's
way when they come
exactly
to visit
right.
it-
Yeah.
All right, and you have 2 kids.
Yes.
Neither of them into music at all.
Not really. My daughter comes to concerts when I play, and she goes to the opera. I think she quite likes the opera. They both studied piano, but it didn't really take. They're better tennis players. I would say.
And tennis is a passion, from what I understand.
gra- well,
tennis
we-
and football, from what I understand.
Yeah, I love to watch tennis. My wife plays. We are very passionate. Yes, we follow it very closely. And at tennis, well, I almost don't play.
Oh.
No, she's all right. She loves it though. That's really the important thing. I think, just as in playing an instrument at home, it doesn't matter whether you're good or not. What matters is you should love it, and do it. There's nothing like doing it yourself.
Well,
So.
we've got, we're going to have you play another piece of music before we get back to another set of questions for you.
All right.
What would you like to play next?
I could play the slow movement of this, or I could play a piece by a composer who liked Beethoven a lot, Schubert.
Either
So
or, I'll
maybe-
let you pick, since it's your
Well,
day here on the stage.
shall I do some Schubert? Why
Schubert?
not? Yeah.
Okay,
So,
we're going to let you do some
so this is a nice.
We'll do, Manuel's going to do a piece by Schubert, then we're going to let him rest for just a second. We're going to talk to Daniel Meyer about the rest of the concert. I have to cough, so I'm going to step off stage. Ladies and gentlemen,
This
Emanuel
is
Ax.
the impromptu in A flat.
Sure. It's like having Emanuel Ax in your living room, isn't it? It's wonderful. We're going to let him rest for just a second, and we're going to talk to Daniel Meyer, music director of the Erie Philharmonic. Hi, Daniel. Thanks for coming.
Good afternoon.
So we're talking a lot about the Beethoven, obviously, but there's another half of the program.
That's right. What do you do when you get a chance to invite Emanuel Ax to come and play the Emperor Concerto? What do you do with the second half of the program? And there's a symphony of Mahler's that I have wanted to program with this orchestra for a very long time. And I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to do so because I think they make actually quite a nice pairing, first of all. But secondly, of course, the Emperor Concerto ends with some real circumstance. And the Mahler symphony fades off into eternity. It really just, it ambles away in a very humble and beautiful and simple way, which is a very un-Mahler gesture to do, I think, especially to end a symphony.
A lot of this work is an un-Mahler-like symphony. If you're very unfamiliar with Mahler and you hear one or two of his early symphonies, by the time you get to this symphony, you wonder what he's doing. Because it's very uncharacteristic, because it's kind of got a sunny disposition.
Well, it's a conscious retreat away from massive forces. It's actually the smallest orchestra that he uses for symphonic work. It's actually also the shortest of the symphonies. And frankly, the last movement is an orchestrated song. And he had this in his back pocket. He actually wanted to put it at the end of the Third Symphony. But the Third Symphony is already a gargantuan work, embraces the entire world. And I think if he were to put it at the end of that symphony, it would have felt like an add-on. Whereas he used this particular song as the germ, if you will, for the entire symphony of the Fourth. So the musical material that's in that last movement of the Fourth Symphony influences and inspires the previous three movements. So I don't know how many composers actually work backwards. I don't know if you ever run across this in the piano literature, Manny, but...
Well, actually, you can't tell because I know a couple of musicologists that work on Beethoven sketchbooks. So there are things that appear, very early in the sketchbooks that will eventually, so I'm not sure. Mozart didn't bother because he had so many ideas that he just threw everything away. I mean, he'd write a fabulous tune and use it once. Other composers would make a living from that tune. But Mahler, but he works forward too, doesn't he? I mean, I get the feeling that in every symphony, there's stuff that'll come in the next symphony, right? So in the Fifth, there's a lot of stuff from the Fourth and so forth. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, he's absolutely right. In fact, there it is. Yeah, that's the beginning of the fourth movement. And there's a little foreshadowing of the Fifth Symphony in the trumpet call, da-ka-da-da, 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 that crops up in the fourth movement. So it's interesting to think of an artist thinking about what he's going to do next, even while he's writing and he's in the thick of composing a specific piece.
And no stranger to adding voices to symphonies. Mahler again brings back a soprano soloist to sing this beautiful, the song in the last movement is a child's view of heaven.
Right, it's called The Heavenly Life, but what's so interesting about it isn't all roses and chocolates. There are moments that are actually quite terrifying in the poem, and he actually brings that out in the orchestration. So when we were rehearsing the piece on Monday and Wednesday night, I was imploring the orchestra. I said, look, we think of this as the kinder, gentler Mahler symphony, but there are really elements that are rather quite terrifying or very picturesque in terms of bringing forth images like the slaughterhouse, and all these lovely images of the lamb and animals kind of making their way through the fourth movement. But essentially, if we're going to eat them, they have to die, and and that comes forth in the music.
I want to ask Daniel two questions.
Sure, absolutely.
One, could you maybe tell people about the violin in the second movement? And two, when is the singer going to come out?
I don't know if I want to give away the answer to the second question, but the first question involves the second movement, and this is a very famous image in music, is to use the solo violin as representative of the devil. And in this case, in the Fourth Symphony, he asks the concertmaster to detune or uptune his instrument so that it actually sounds even more gnarly and even more uncomfortable than you can imagine. And so our concertmaster, Ken Johnston, is actually going to have a second instrument at his side on a piano bench. So he'll be able to pick that one up so that he doesn't have to detune his own instrument that he's going to be using for the rest of the symphony. And when you hear these solo lines come out of the solo violin in the second movement, you really have this uneasy feeling that there's something diabolical at work, even in and amidst all of these. Right. Exactly, and preponderances of tritones, which of course are also that augmented fourth or diminished fifth. That's always a signal or a sign of the devil making his way into music. Right. Yeah, so all of this is worked into this, on the surface, very lovely symphony. But at its core, Mahler can't be anyone but himself. And inject some of these images and these ideas into his music. I'll leave that for Saturday night.
The soloist, Shari Gruber.
Yes, Shari is a lovely human being and a beautiful singer. She's sung all over the world. She makes her home now in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And she also happens to be married to the artistic administrator of the Pittsburgh Opera, Bill Powers. And they have a lovely family, a little daughter. And I've just really enjoyed getting a chance to finally work with her. Our paths have kind of circled around each other many times, but they've never intersected. So I'm really thrilled that she agreed to take on this fourth movement.
Well, this isn't her first time in Erie. She has been in Erie before. So this is kind of nice. It's a chance for her to perform with the Erie Phil. Spectacular soprano, wonderful voice. Really world class. So you've picked some great guest artists for this concert.
Well, thank you. But I mean, the pleasure is ours, of course, to get a chance to work with Emanuel and with Shari. And I'm just so pleased the degree to which this community embraces this orchestra. I mean, it's certainly something to be proud of that it's 104 years old, right? I mean, that's incredible. And you know, our community's been through some lean times. We can be honest about that. But one thing that stands firm is this commitment and this passion to the arts. And thank you, Mercyhurst University, for opening your doors to us this week and being so generous with your faculty and your time and your instruments and allowing Maestro Ax to rehearse here. And did some of you actually take off spring break to come up and join us today? I know that.
Or work. I see a few people.
I know the university is on spring break, but it's nice to see some students here in the audience today. And maybe your listeners don't know this, but it's an absolutely packed recital hall today for this free noontime.
And do you mind taking just a second to tell us how we ended up with Emanuel Ax as our guest soloist for this weekend?
Well, Manny wouldn't have remembered this, but I first met him as a high schooler. I had the great opportunity. I was singing in the Blossom Festival Chorus, which is the summer chorus of the Cleveland Orchestra. And they asked us one day, would anyone like to turn pages for this piano monster concert that they're holding on the stage of Blossom? So 10 grand pianos, all in a semicircle. So I think you played a transcription of Beethoven's Fifth. I think Ride of the Valkyrie was part of that.
The 1812
1812 Overture. How could I forget that? But luminaries from all over the world on the same stage at the same time, all organized by Leonard Slatkin, who was the festival director at the time. And I got to turn pages for Emanuel Ax when I was a high schooler. So that's when I first met him, and then our paths have crossed a number of times over the years. Perhaps most importantly, as when I was assistant and then resident conductor of the Pittsburgh Symphony, so I got a chance to hear him solo with that great orchestra. But then Emanuel very generously agreed to come to the Asheville Symphony 2 years ago. And he wanted to make an impact on our community and see what we could do within the span that he would spend time in Asheville. And we built an entire festival around it. So now there's the Asheville Amadeus Festival, the second iteration of which is happening next week. So I get to work with Emanuel this week, and then Midori is going to come next week and spend 5 days with the Asheville Symphony and the Asheville Buncombe Youth Orchestra. And I was joking the other night, when she sees a free hour in the schedule, she wants to plug it in with something. She's just so committed and really wants to jump into the community. So thanks to you for starting that off and making it such a wonderful feature now of what we do at the Asheville Symphony.
Well, thanks again, everybody. Daniel Meyer, music director of the Erie Philharmonic. This is for you. We'll just ask you a few more questions and then we'll play something.
Okay.
So we'll ask Emanuel a few more questions, and then we'll get him to play something for you as we get closer to the top of the hour. One of the questions we were submitted was, do you tweet or Facebook? Do you do social media, and is it important to today's upcoming musicians?
I don't do much, but I do actually tweet. I tweet 3 things. Food, things that I've really liked a lot. Occasional pictures of my grandkids, and great concerts that I've gone to. So if I hear, if I go to hear an opera or the New York Phil or something, I'll tweet about that. Otherwise, not so much. No,
Well,
I don't think I'm on Facebook. I'm not really sure. I don't.
Somebody does it for you, I think.
Well, I'm not. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know, but I haven't done any Facebook stuff, so I'm not really with it. I think it's great that young people can get a start on their own. I think, and that's wonderful that you don't have to. In our time, in our generation, we were like like horses with blinders on. There was only one path. You practiced, you went to a competition, and got lucky and won. And then got management and maybe a few concerts, or you met a conductor who liked you and would hire you. So there were really, and now people can do so many things on their own and find ways to find their own audiences. I hope and I think that it will never replace the live concert. Right. And I say that because I guess I'm a sports fan, as we said, and I still see that even though you can see the Super Bowl with 40 cameras and get a close-up of everything, people still pay a lot of money to go to the Super Bowl because you want to be at the event and be with other people. And I hope that will remain true for concerts, live theater, opera things. I think it's still nice to be there.
It is, absolutely.
It's nice to go to Wimbledon and not just see it on TV.
Just see it on TV.
Yeah.
Another question. I'd read that you have a very interesting take on applause, and applause during concerts.
Yeah, well, not a question of interesting. I mean, I think it's very silly. For example, the piece that I played to start off, this first movement. You finish that, and to hear, and that's it, is to me very weird. Because if Beethoven hadn't wanted applause, he wouldn't have written an ending like that.
Right.
That's true of the Emperor Concerto. When he doesn't want it, he doesn't write it.
Right.
For example, he doesn't want applause between the second and third movements of the Emperor, so he connects it. Same is true of the fourth concerto. The Appassionata, where he definitely does not want applause at the end of the first movement, this is what he writes. Enormous climax, but then he fades it out. And that, I think, he's such a theatrical composer, as was Mozart. And I think he understands that. He doesn't want an interruption before the next thing, so he finds a way to compose that. But I think it's really silly to hear the Tchaikovsky piano concerto and not applaud after the first movement. Yeah. It means that you're only going by what you've been told is proper behavior, and not your impulse.
And that behavior is relatively recent, maybe 100, 150
Yeah.
years. Before,
it's historically
concerts were much
completely inaccurate. Right. That's another thing. Yeah. That if you want to do it like Beethoven, you would, by all means, applaud.
So, for Daniel, would there be any harm in them applauding between movements tomorrow night?
No. Well, after first movement's great. After second movement, probably won't want to, and the third movement connects to the fourth. So it's these guys know what they're doing.
That will give their hands a chance to rest a little bit before the massive round of applause at the very end.
Yes.
All right, your first concert experience. I read that you went to see Vladimir Ashkenazy in concert, and he was about 15 and you were 5.
Exactly.
And
he's about 10. He's 10 or 11 years older than I am, and of course he was already very famous in Russia.
Right.
He was a real child prodigy. Played all the Chopin etudes by the time he was 12, things like that. I don't remember the concert. I know I went to that.
Right. Well, that leads to the next question. He's gone on and kind of altered his career to where he does a lot of conducting. I've seen him any number of times in Cleveland.
Yes. In fact, I'm playing with him in Cleveland next season.
Well,
So I'm very excited. Yeah.
Do you have any desire to conduct?
Not in the least. I have absolutely no desire to conduct. I think it's a totally separate talent and ability, and I know I wouldn't be good at it, and I don't really desperately want to. Right. So it's not for me. But he was one of the great pianists, really a phenomenal artist, and with phenomenal accuracy and ability. And the first time I played with him, it was a big concerto. It was the Brahms Second Concerto, and he's very kind, very nice man. And I said, he said, please call me Vova, Vova for Vladimir's. Vova, I have to tell you, I always get nervous when I play, but playing this piece with you, I'm especially nervous. He said, oh, please don't worry. When I conduct, I never listen. so that was very comforting. I mean, he meant it in a very nice way, I think.
How about, I watched a video a couple of months back. It was a young piano soloist at a competition, and he flubbed a section horribly. So he stopped, put his hands in his lap for a second, started again, got to that same section, ruined it a second time. Stopped, took a deep breath, shook it off, started to play it a third time, missed it. Judge taps on the table, says, thank you very much, you can leave, and he leaves. Have you ever had a horrifying moment either on stage in a competition where you just blank out and lose your place? And then what do you do?
So far that hasn't happened to me. I've had
No.
I've had some memory slips, but usually you get out of it somehow. You go on to the next thing. I've never actually had to stop and restart, I think. But I don't think it's such a big deal. I can only say when you watch, I remember watching the dreadful Super Bowl a couple of years ago when the first play from scrimmage, Peyton Manning called the snap, the ball went over his head into the end zone.
Right.
From the first play. I mean, these things can happen. It's all right. We just try again. I don't think that I always say before I go out, because I do get quite nervous, I always say to myself, it's not brain surgery, nobody dies. So nothing so horrible can happen. That's my reaction.
Well, not only do horrible things rarely happen to you, great things happen. 7 Grammy Awards. 7. Where do you keep them?
Well, I keep them at home, obviously, and of course, again, I've been so lucky because 4 of them are with Yo-Yo.
Right.
So that's he always gets a Grammy. So if we make a record, then so it's yeah. I think again, all these things, winning a competition, getting an award, even getting to play with a big orchestra are all matters of luck. I think that's what you need most to have a music career. I think you need luck.
And a little bit of practice time.
Well, practice is given. Yeah, you have to practice and you have to play well. But there are a lot of people that are deserving, and you really need luck.
Now, who inspires you right now? Do you listen to other performers?
Many, yeah. Oh, many. I listened to pianists before my time. Alfred Cortot. I love Cortot's playing. People that I heard when I was young. Of course, I listened to Rubinstein, Horowitz, Sirkin all the time. And a lot of young people, a lot of great young people. I listen to contemporaries, Garrick Olson, Fima Bronfman. There are many. There's so many wonderful pianists, and I will say that the level of playing that young people have now has never happened before. Right. I think there's just been nothing like it. There are things that, for example, that Yuja Wang or Lang Lang do on record that I play the piano. I have no idea how they do it. I literally don't. The sheer velocity and accuracy, I don't know how it happens. And a lot of people have that. It's amazing.
Right. Yeah, music schools are turning out a plethora of great performers.
Great word.
Yeah, that's
I love that.
Also, we only have a little bit of time before we go back to letting you play another piece of music here. Interpretations. Somebody wrote in and asked, do you try to make each piece distinctly your own, or do you try to stay really close to what the composer intended, or do you blend the two together?
I don't think you try to make it your own. What you're doing, I think, as a performer, is you're saying, I'm doing exactly what the composer wanted.
Right.
It's just that everybody thinks the composer wanted something different.
Unless
that's the nice part of it. That's the nice part of it.
Unless the composer's there with you.
Oh no, even then, I just did a piece by H.K. Gruber, Viennese composer with New York Philharmonic. He's open to anything. You know, you sort of say, well, maybe this should be a little quicker. Yes, it's a good idea. Yeah, wunderbar idea, wunderbar. Okay, and maybe this note we should, yeah, this is a little uncomfortable. You don't really need the octave. Yeah, the octave is stupid. So you know, they're very open to things.
And you do like to
and the
work
next
with
performer who will do that piece, he'll be the same way. It's.
And you do like to work with new composers. That's one of the.
I try.
things.
Yeah, I try.
Do you commission works, or do they just
They
approach
usually
you to
get
perform them?
commissioned for me. This particular piece was commissioned by 4 different orchestras, and sometimes recital societies commission pieces. Yeah, so different things.
So, new composers, is there a Beethoven out there right now?
I don't know. The only thing I can do is try and play some music by new people, and leave it to everybody else and to history. History is a very harsh judge. Terrible. You know, when you think of all, not only in music, but when you think of all the writers that used to be popular. Although I once had a very funny thing. I spoke at a library in Stockbridge where we spent summers at Tanglewood. And I used as an example, I said, well, you know, if you think of, let's take Anthony Trollope, who was such a popular author in his time. Who reads Trollope today? 20 hands went up. I said, bad example, I guess.
Well, we're running out of time. We've only got
good.
just a couple of minutes. Oh, good. That way we can wrap up and let them rest a little before tomorrow night's performance and tonight's rehearsal. So I'm going to say a few thank yous, and then we're going to go ahead and let you wrap things up with another performance. What would you like to play to take us out to the top of the hour?
Maybe I don't. It doesn't matter. Maybe
Beethoven?
The Beethoven is fine. Yeah.
Is the Beethoven good?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So let me do some thank yous. Again, thank you, Daniel Meyer. Tomorrow's sold out, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yes. But I mean, that's a great thing for the Philharmonic, and we're really, really, really proud of that. But so your last chance, well, was today. Oh no, I'm sorry. You can come to the dress rehearsal tonight. We have an open dress rehearsal at the Warner Theater. Starts at 7:30, and you're welcome to come and hear a little bit of the rehearsal. Get a taste for what you're missing on Saturday.
Again, thank you, Daniel. Thank you to Manny Ax for spending some time with us here. Thanks to Steve Weiser, Daniel, and the Erie Phil staff for bringing Emanuel into Erie for us. Thanks to Brett Johnson, Greg Clapper, and the staff here at Mercyhurst for making this happen. Thanks to Dan Sullivan, Sue Ellen, Aaron Cosio, Natalia Garcia, Bill Moon, and all the rest of the staff at WQLN for helping make this happen. But especially, how about another round of applause for Emanuel Ax? We're going to let him take us out right to the top of the hour. I'm Brian Hanna. Thanks for joining us for Live from Studio Q.